And welcome back to Coast. George Norrie with our friend Barbara DeLong. Barbara, I think your late husband, Patrick Cook, would be very proud of you for carrying on the torch.
Well, actually, he's the one that did encourage me to keep going. And when I started my own radio station, Nightlight Radio, he was very supportive of that. And I think at this point, I interview authors, and every week I read a book a week, and I interview the author. And I know that he would be fascinated with a lot of the people that I've had on the show. It's been a very exciting experience for me, and he did kind of keep pushing me a little bit more and a little bit more. So after that, I guess I got on a slide, and he died. So I just kept going.
Good for you. Of all the UFO cases you've heard about, is there one that just fascinates you more than any of the others?
I think the Dropa, 10,000 BCE. I am very, very fascinated with that because the tribe still exists. And my Red Baron story, of course, I love. And
I love the 800 disappearing British Army members. My God.
Well, that's cool, too. And the other is Operation High Jump, with Admiral Byrd going to the South Pole to...
in the inner planet, right?
Yeah, well, he was... Well, no, he did say he had been to inner Earth, and, of course, that they told him to keep quiet on, and he did, basically, but his biography is still out there. But in 1946, the U.S. Navy sent a fleet of 13 ships, 33 aircraft, and 4,700 men to occupy Antarctica. And this was under the leadership of Admiral Byrd. And it was called a scientific research one, but they, which was ridiculous because it was the aftermath of World War II. And what happened is they got down there and they were attacked by flying saucers, and they lost the battle actually, and they came back really ahead of time, and nothing else was ever said about it.
Like attacked, like viciously?
Well, yeah. I mean, the Germans had an underground force there. They had a camp there. Camp isn't the right word. They had an underground community there, and according to some, now I have a lot of different sources I pull from, so I'm not, it isn't totally from one particular place, but the philosophy behind it is that originally there was an alien base there, and that they had deserted most of it, but they were still there, and they allowed the Germans to come in and utilize it during the war for their submarines, and they set up a fort there, and they were building UFOs. The aliens were teaching them to build the UFOs there. And so when this is Operation High Jump, when they got down there, they were attacked, and they lost. And they came back really fast. They came back a lot faster than they had planned. They were going to set up, they were going to take it over, and what's fascinating is that when he went in his plane into inner Earth, he was surprised that he saw swastikas, and they spoke German.
That's right. With
German accents. And that basically they were worried about our utilization of nuclear power. And, he was sent back with a message to, cut it out, basically. And
that never happened.
No. So it's that to me has always been fascinating. That the fact that so many politicians have suddenly gone to the Antarctic, for what reason? Not to see the whales or the dolphins, the whales. So there's definitely still something going on there. There's an above ground lake that doesn't freeze, and there's a no-fly zone over which no one is allowed to fly. Why? It's harder for the government to hide stuff today than it ever has been. And I believe there's something going on there. I believe that community, I'm not so sure about Middle Earth, but I am positive, as one can be, that there is still a large number of aliens and possibly Germans still down there.
A lot of people believe that. Let's take some calls for you. Let's go west of the Rockies. Pat, you're truck driving in California. Hi, Pat.
Hey, George.
Good to have you with us. Go ahead.
Hey, thank you for taking my call. Barbara, it's a fascinating topic. I just had I actually had two questions, but George asked my second one about one case that was just, that was just fascinating that really stuck to your mind. But my first question was concerning Bigfoot. Do you believe there's any correlation with Bigfoot and aliens? Because you mentioned that the 800 went through a time portal. I believe that Bigfoot travels through time portals. I just wanted to hear your take on that. If you have any opinions on Bigfoot and alien relations.
Oh, absolutely. I think Bigfoot is definitely interdimensional. That's why we've not found any bones or scat or anything that would say this is where they live. They're basically put in areas where and they come through I call it a portal, a stargate, whatever you want to call it. But I do believe they come and they go, and I think that I don't think that we're like Disneyland for them or anything like that. But I do feel that they like the isolation, they like the quiet, I think from wherever they come from, that Earth, this dimension, gives them some sort of place of relaxation and peace. They don't use weapons, they don't hurt humans. I mean, they will throw rocks, but that's about all. I think they are, in many ways, more evolved than we are. They just don't look as pretty.
It's a bizarre situation, though, Barbara, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. But when you look at Bigfoot and Yeti and Sasquatch, I think it's all in the same thing. I think they've come through portals. Now, they may have come through a fold in time, where two timelines kind of cross and they're able to slip in and out. But I do think that I don't think that there's any malice or forethought with them. I think that they just want to be left alone, and I think we should do that. We should honor them. And it's like everything else. When we find something that we don't understand, people want to go out and kill them. Bring me a body and prove it type stuff. And the reality is that we are such a war-oriented culture at this point in time that we don't know how to peacefully try to communicate with these. I know Mary Joyce has done her website is Skyships Over Cashiers. She has lots of places where they are communicating with Bigfoots in a very gentle way, and especially the United States is not a country where we will take something we don't understand and peacefully try to make friends with it. We want to attack it. We want to confine it. We want to study it. And I think our way of approaching something we don't understand is so barbaric that it's kept us from having the communication that quite possibly we could have had.
Good point. International line, Don's with us in Alberta, Canada. Hey, Donald, go ahead.
Hi, George. Hi, Barbara.
Hi.
I got half an hour? No, just joking. Anyway, up where I'm at in Canada, in St. Paul, Alberta, not St. Paul, Minnesota, they actually built a landing pad in 1967. Like, I grew up not far from the area, and never did I know that the reason why is there was a UFO that was about 300 feet in diameter, translucent, and it flew around the town the entire night. And so when Canada got its money for our anniversary, our 67 or 100-year anniversary, the town took and built the UFO landing pad, and then they built another building there. And then they had all the newspaper articles up at one time, but then they all got taken down. But it's amazing how fast technology gets lost. And the other thing is for Germany, anti-gravity, they had probably about 6 different programs on the go, because I talked to, like, part of my background is German, and I knew a lot of people from there. And they actually, when they were kids, they actually witnessed. But one guy told me that he had the autographed book of the 2 test pilots from his village, town, whatever you want to call it. And it could go from 0 to 60,000 feet so fast they kept bending the airframe. But the people inside the cab wouldn't experience any G-force. So I got all excited, and I sent them a bunch of data and pictures of stuff that I had known about. But what I realized is that the Germans had probably about 6 or 7 programs on the go at once, and they compartmentalized everything, and then they would take the technology and they would move it into a central location where they would finally finish off their craft. Anyway, and the other question, I guess I had a question in Mongolia. There was a base of aliens that was, well, they had been there, according to their records, for like 2,000 years or more, and the Russians went and nuked the place and to steal the technology. I was just wondering if you knew anything about that. I was fascinated. I've only heard it about once on, I didn't know it existed until one night I was listening to George's show. I can't remember who the gentleman was that brought it up, but I thought it was quite fascinating. They had been living there in peace, and then we go there to steal the technology and nuke them.
Absolutely.
In order to get it.
I've not heard of it, but I'm not surprised.
Interesting takes on all this. You know, it's just what mankind does, Barbara. You know what?
Well, look what we did. I mean, even Tesla was working with anti-gravity, and he was so far behind. You know, I almost think that he was not only before his time. I think he may have been from another time, trying to come back and help, and we killed him. I mean, that's what we do.
He was a time traveler, you think?
Yeah, I believe that, yeah.
Let's go to Joe in the Bronx. Go ahead, Joseph.
How are you?
Good, Joe.
Good. Barbara, you mentioned earlier in the segment that you believe that God does not resemble us, but the Bible says that we are created in God's image, so wouldn't it follow that God looks like us?
If God was a person, yes, but don't forget, angels can take on many forms, and I think God can take on many forms. And at some point, those amazing men that were inspired to write the Bible had to, in some way, explain God in a way that everybody would understand, and so they wrote it that way. I don't believe that we are in many ways. They said that we are created in God's image. I do believe, like I said earlier, that there was a deeper meaning to what was written. I consider the Spirit, that essence that is a part of creation that's in all of us, is similar. We are a part of God. We were created to have that part in us, but that doesn't necessarily mean the physical part.
Let's go to Mark in Baltimore, Maryland on the wild card line. Hey, Mark, go ahead.
Thank you, George. Thank you very much. A while back, the late Senator, I think his first name was Stephen Schiff, and then the late Senator William Richardson from New Mexico, they were champions of getting the truth out there from a governmental standpoint. So, by the way, thank you for continuing your late husband's work. So my question would be, Barbara, do you think that our government will ever tell us or reveal to us the entire truth about UFOs?
No.
Quite bluntly, that's it, huh, Barb?
No, as far as I can tell, and this is my philosophy from what I've studied with, and I'll be 80 my next birthday, so
good for you.
It's a long time. And what I'm seeing here is that our government is merely a puppet of another organization that is a puppet of another organization. And so I don't believe that you and I will ever get the whole truth. I do believe that there are tunnels underneath underneath the entire world. There are tunnels several miles down that are being prepared for the next pole shift, so that when it happens, only those who are underground are going to survive the shift.
You really think that's going to happen, Barb?
Oh, the pole has shifted before. That's a fact.
Let's go to Rick in Dallas, Texas. Go ahead, Rick.
Yes, sir. George, just want to tell you, I really admire you, and I love your show. And
well, thank you.
You're very fascinating. I'm going to get your book and read it. But y'all mentioned early on about the 1897 Aurora, Texas case, and I thought you might like to hear a clarification about something on that. I
Sure.
know a lot of the folks involved and everything, and the problem is not knowing where the guy is buried. We know exactly where he's buried. The hurdle is getting permission to exhume him. He's in an old, what's still a country graveyard up there. And there's two stones. There used to be a stone on it, and they had, at the time, carved the image of a little spaceship on there. Well, about the time of the 1973 incident that you were talking about, that stone got stolen. And a lawyer here in Dallas, he's got a reward out, return it, no questions asked, still no results on that. But anyway, the point is, he was buried right there between two adjacent graves, and those stones are still there. And we've even got videotape back in that 70s era we were talking about where you could still see it when the stone was there. So we do know exactly where that coffin is buried. That's not the problem. We were even going to pursue it. I've got a friend I went to school with. He was a cheerleader. He's a preacher up there now. But something I heard, George, on your show made me kind of gibberish and leery about pursuing it. Do you remember that book you had a feller on talking about that fascinating case in Brazil where the craft crashed and one critter was injured and the other was running through the town, and that boy jumped out of the Jeep and tackled him and got a little scratch on his arm.
That's right.
And 2 days later, he was dead. There was some kind of out-of-this-world bacteria, and there wasn't nothing to treat it and everything. And we got to thinking, if we did get access and got that thing opened up in there, you'd probably have to have on one of those biohazard suits, because there's no telling what kind of foreign bacteria or whatever might still be in there. You don't know how long that stuff would survive.
Well, that's exactly what Charles Schutz III was talking about a few days ago when he said, be careful what you bring back from Mars. We're going to wrap things up with Barbara DeLong when we come right back on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to our final segment with Barbara DeLong. Her book is called Before Roswell, available on Amazon.com. Her website is her name, linked up at coasttocoastam.com. And Barbara, how do people hear your radio show?
Actually, they can get it right from my website. There's a link there. I do it on Blog Talk Radio, and then it goes up on tons of other servers and YouTube and Rumble, TalkStream Live as well.
How often are you doing the show?
I do it once a week, and I have other people that do shows on Nightlight Radio as well, so that, there are other modalities that can be addressed as well. But the calendar on my website has them all listed. All you have to do is check that out, and you'll see who's doing a show when. Absolutely.
What do you think of the congressional hearings on UFOs?
I think they're a joke.
You think it's all show, no go?
Exactly. Well, not only that, but what are they going to prove? They're going to prove that somebody believed a lie and lived it, and therefore, even though it's a lie, they believe it. I mean, so many times you can see something and believe it, and it's just it's a fraud. And I think that's what's going on here. That unfortunately, there's so much going on that is not the truth, and it's taking up money and it's taking up time, and our government is falling apart because of it.
Let's go to the phones. Final callers for you. We'll pick it up by going to Dan in Cleveland, east of the Rockies, to get us started. Hey, Daniel.
Yes. I was wondering where you were going to get to me. If somebody told me they didn't believe in aliens, I would say, do you believe in God? And if they said yes, then I would say, well, why did God create all these stars, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of stars,
millions,
and planets on them, and not put some intelligent beings on them? I mean, what did he do? Did God create all these planets and everything just to entertain us? It's absurd. There's got to be a life somewhere out there. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we have to adjust our terms, because right at the moment we're being invaded by aliens. And so extraterrestrials, yeah, I do. People have. I don't know if it's their education or their structure, or their minds are not ready to accept something that is otherworldly, because certainly we are not the only race out there. And I think the reason that we haven't really been contacted more is because we are such a warring planet that peaceful extraterrestrials probably don't want to have anything to do with us.
What about the non-peaceful ones? Do you think they're out there, Barbara?
I do. I think that they were created by the same energy, the same God that created us, not because he was bored and wanted to really throw a glitch in everything, but I think we all have positive and negative, and I think there are some that have chosen the negative, and just as though there are very evil humans, it would stand to reason there would be evil extraterrestrials as well.
We have text and tweets for Barbara. Tom, I still can't get to the point of saying texts and X's.
No, we need to change that. Barbara, this one from Jordan in Portland, Oregon. He would like to know why you think the mainstream will sometimes dismiss experiencers as loose cannons, as he calls them.
Because they are. There are so many of us out here that have seen UFOs, that know exactly what we've seen, and will take the abuse we get from the people. When I saw one, I had almost 30 years of being laughed at and poked fun at, and how many beers did you have that night? And yet, when you see one, there is an instant click of some sort inside of you, and it's a belief, like you believe in God. I believe I saw what I saw, and it was big enough so it could have had people in it, but I don't know if it did or not. I think that what we got here is the fact that there are people that don't want to believe it. They're afraid that it might be something that they couldn't handle. And when I saw the UFO, the person standing right next to me did not see it.
Next up, we've got Thomas in Sheboygan, Wisconsin on the wild card line. Hi, Tom. Go ahead.
Hey, George. How are you doing?
Good, my friend. Thank you.
Yeah, I was wondering to get your guest's opinion about, I'd seen it on a program, I think it was Ancient Aliens. Some archaeologists had dug up 6-fingered, 6-toed mummified sloth that they coined the name Maria in far South America. I was just wondering if you might think that was an alien.
It's not the one that Jaime Maussan unveiled, but go ahead, Barbara.
Yeah, I think that there have been aliens that have died here, and that have been mummified. In some cases, I know some in Egypt have been discovered. I think they're there. I mean, when the Roswell crash happened, they had the bodies of several of them, and at least one, if not two of them, were still alive.
But where are they now, Barbara?
I think they're inside a mountain someplace, I don't know if they're still alive, but I do know that for sure that they were emitting some sort of homing signal to their home planet, world, whatever. So that I know that the signals have gone out there. I think that's what SETI is looking for. It's looking for a response.
Driving through Arizona, Kelly's with us now. Go ahead, Kel. Good to have you with us.
Hey, George. Hey, Barbara. I got this kind of goofy theory about Roswell, and I'm going to sound like a complete millennial. I saw a video on TikTok not too long ago that confirmed that I'm not the only one that saw this. 1947, we had Kenneth Arnold see those aircraft flying around Everett, Washington. Operation Paperclip, kind of close to Boeing. The first time I saw a Horton HO-229 jet that was captured, I couldn't help but think that aircraft that Kenneth Arnold saw was possibly a Horton jet. And if you look at the Jack Northrop was known to be using that strip that the shuttle lands on White Sands. If you draw a straight line, deviate a couple degrees, if you're in some craft doing 600 miles an hour and say you have some problems 15 minutes into flight, boom, you're right there at the Roswell crash site. And, Barbara, you were just talking about some of the Nazi German tech that was hiding out in caves. After the war, the Allies found these massive presses that were able to fabricate these really neat, intricate, and very complex pieces of aluminum that, when we were building airplanes at that time, it was multiple pieces of aluminum riveted together. So for someone that has only seen, like, Stearmans and DC-3s, the occasional B-29, I think it's kind of a logical conclusion that it's quite possibly they might have seen a Horton HO-229. I'm not going to discount anything that Major Corso said, but I was just kind of curious about your guys' opinions or thoughts about that. I know you all have been doing UFO thing for, 12 or 15 minutes respectively. I just kind of thought about that not so long ago and was wondering what your guys' opinion was on that.
Your thoughts, Barbara? It could have been another plane, huh?
I don't think it was, but since then we have been playing with trying to replicate these, and so have many other countries. So I wouldn't doubt some of our newest technology does look very much like the plane that went up the coast for Phoenix Lights, but they make noise, and I don't think that they're similar, but I don't think they're the same. I think that what's going on here is our trying to replicate instead of just going ahead with our own stuff. But our government, unfortunately, has kept so much under the covers, so to speak.
Under wraps, yep.
Yeah, my father was in the FBI in 1945. He saw a demonstration of a car that would run on water if you dropped a little white pill in it. It's never come out, but my father saw it and he drove it.
What did Dad think of J. Edgar Hoover?
Not much.
I didn't think so. Let's go to Carlos, the island of Oahu in Hawaii. Hey, Carlos, go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, George, and aloha, Barbara.
Hello.
Barbara, a lot of the problems with disclosure is the secrecy, the classification by the government of top-secret technology, quantum technology it is. Uh-huh. And what you were referring to, the pill, that separates the hydrogen and the oxygen. And so the vehicle was actually running on hydrogen. But that's incidental. It's the classification, the secrecy. And a lot of it has to do with the anti-nuclear movement back in the 1970s and into the 1980s, where these people were so adamantly opposed to nuclear technology that they would protest any type or form of use of it. And our anti-gravitational devices are nuclear powered. What I wanted to mention, though, was that I want to ask you if you're familiar at all with the top-secret 1973 Jupiter Project Skylab mission, on which I was, proudly I will say, I am the real Carlos. I was the first officer on that mission. Now, our experimental craft, which are made out of titanium, which is a transportable material, are capable of transcending time. So some of the so-called UFOs that we see, and they're unidentified to the people who are perceiving them, but in fact, they are United States experimental craft that are able to transcend time. So they're either coming from the past or from the future. And what they can do is they can warp right off the radar screen by transcending time, and they're gone. They vanish.
What do you think of that, Barb?
Well, I think he's absolutely true. The drone that landed in Rendlesham Forest was from 8100. In other words, thousands of years in our future, watching us. So that, yeah, I would say that easily there's time travel going on, and you've seen the examples of it, but people don't tend to want to cope with it, and I think that what is so sad is there's so much going on. Tesla and so many of the other scientists were playing with it decades and decades ago, and I know that they've got cures for cancer. I know that they've got cures for a lot of the stuff that's going on, and yet they're so tuned in on depopulating the earth so that we have fewer people on it, that they aren't paying attention to the fact that the technology and the things that they have already developed that are available to everyone and would help everyone would not fit in with their agenda and what they want to do with the planet.
Let's go to first-time caller Quinn in Los Angeles real quick. Go ahead, Quinn.
Hi, Barbara. So you mentioned earlier that, human DNA has been traced back further than the Earth has been around, and, saying that we're from a different planet and from a different dimension at that. Then, that our next destination in our journey could very well be to another planet in another dimension. So my question is, what might another planet in another dimension possibly look like?
I would guess, Barbara, it'll look like Earth. What do you think?
Well, that's what I've been told. It will be a transition and ascension in awareness and consciousness, and to another planet, definitely. But one in which our ability to live together in harmony is far exceeds what we have today.
So, Barbara, are you going to write another book?
Oh, several.
Good for you. What are their subject matters, if I can guess?
Well, there's one called What If. There's one called Spiritual Breadcrumbs. There's one that is an interview with a spirit guide.
And I want to just take a quick moment to tell you that your husband, Patrick, was a great guest of ours, and we miss him dearly, by the way.
Me too.
He was a good guy. Tell folks about your website and where they can listen to your radio show.
Website is barbaradelong.com. Radio show is Nightlight Radio. It's on Blog Talk Radio, and there is also another website for the Cosmic Deck of Initiation and the handbook. It's cosmicdeckofinitiation.com.
Super. Barbara, thanks for being on the program. Keep in touch with us, okay?
I sure will.
Have yourself a great weekend, and thanks for being with us on the first day of autumn, 2023. For Dan Galante, Tom Danheiser, Lisa Lyon, Lex Lonehood, Sean Ladassour, Stephanie Smith, Chris Burrows, Tim Banal, George Knapp, and Ian Punnett, I'm George Norrie, somewhere out there on Coast to Coast AM. We'll see you on our next edition. Until then, be safe, everyone.